This is a dangerously broad provision that could be used to rope in anybody with access to a cable box, a Wi-Fi router, or a server. It was jammed into the 2024 reauthorization bill at the last minute. Senators were told they had no choice but to support it. And now, 2 years later, we've just had testimony from a very respected individual who's saying, so far it has had no value.
This is Dr. John Podcast. Welcome, guys. So what just happened? Kash Patel, the FBI director, is considering resignation. And the reason isn't some noble stand. It's not a principled exit. It's a man being crushed from every direction at once.
Director Patel, a question for you. In 2023, your predecessor testified that, and I quote, "To my knowledge, we do not currently purchase commercial database information that includes location data derived from internet advertising." Is that the case still? And if so, can you commit this morning to not buying Americans' location data?
Let me tell you what's happening behind the scenes, because this story is wilder than anything you've heard on cable news. Patel is caught in a three-front war. On one side, he's locked in a brutal internal fight with Attorney General Pam Bondi.
The FBI uses all tools, Senator, thank you for the question, to do our mission. We do purchase commercially available information that's consistent with the Constitution and the laws under the Electronic Communications Privacy Act, and it has led to some valuable intelligence for us to be utilized with our private and partner sectors.
So you're saying that the agency will buy Americans' location data. I believe that that's what you've said in kind of intelligence lingo, and I just want to say, as we start this debate, doing that without a warrant is an outrageous end run around the Fourth Amendment. It's particularly dangerous given the use of artificial intelligence to comb through massive amounts of private information.
Over the Epstein files, the documents everyone has been demanding for years. On another side, Congress is bearing down on him with evidence of foreign money, millions of dollars tied to Chinese and Russian entities, and he can't give them straight answers.
This is Exhibit A for why Congress needs to pass our bipartisan, bicameral bill, the Government Surveillance Reform Act. I have time, I believe, for one more question. Director Patel, you 3 weeks ago indicated you were dissatisfied about having your phone records subpoenaed. Do you think the government ought to get a court order to collect phone records?
Senator, in my experience, the government does get court orders to obtain phone records.
And on the third side, the FBI itself is collapsing under his leadership, with agents suing, morale tanking, and his own deputy threatening to walk. And here's the part that should terrify anyone who cares about accountability. Patel's deputy is Bongino, the conservative podcaster, the Fox News guy. That's the number 2 at the FBI. And Bongino reportedly threatened to resign over the Epstein document fight. Patel's response? He said if Bongino goes, he goes too. So the FBI director is willing to quit in solidarity with a media personality whose main qualification for the job was being loud on television. That's where we are right now. But let's rewind and understand how we got here, because this didn't happen overnight. The pressure on Patel has been building for months. It started with the Epstein files, which have become a political time bomb sitting on Patel's desk. The FBI has everything: flight logs, client lists, the full archive of Jeffrey Epstein's criminal operation. And for years, the public has been demanding transparency. Who was on those planes? Who visited the island? Who is being protected? Patel's FBI promised to release the files. They made statements, they generated headlines, but nothing actually happened. Behind the scenes, reports say Patel and Attorney General Pam Bondi are in a massive fight over what gets released. Bondi, according to sources, wants to keep certain names hidden. Patel and Bongino are supposedly pushing for more transparency. But here's the problem. Nobody actually knows what Patel wants, because when Congress asked him directly, he refused to give clear answers. In marathon hearings that stretched over 10 hours, Democrats hammered him with the same question over and over. Will you release the complete Epstein files? Will you make the client list public? And Patel dodged. He deflected. He gave bureaucratic answers about ongoing investigations and protecting sources. He never said yes. He never said no. He just refused to commit. And that's what's killing him. Because if Patel really wanted transparency, he could release the files tomorrow. He's the FBI director. He has the authority, but he hasn't done it, which means either someone above him is blocking the release or he doesn't actually want the files public. Either way, it looks like a cover-up. And And when you're the FBI director and people think you're covering up for Jeffrey Epstein's clients, your credibility evaporates instantly. Then there's the foreign money issue, which might be even more damaging. Senator Adam Schiff and a group of Democrats sent Patel a formal letter demanding answers about his financial ties. And the allegations in that letter are stunning. Millions of dollars in holdings tied to a Chinese Communist Party-backed company accused of using forced labor. Payments from a Russia-linked propagandist, connections to a foreign arms conglomerate. The FBI director, the man in charge of counterintelligence and protecting America from foreign threats, has financial entanglements with America's two biggest adversaries. When Congress asked him to explain these ties, Patel didn't provide detailed answers. He claimed everything was properly disclosed during his confirmation. He said there was no conflict, but he never actually showed his work. He never walked through the connections and explained why they weren't a problem. And in Washington, stonewalling is the same as admitting guilt. If you have nothing to hide, you release the information. You explain the payments. You show that everything was above board. Patel hasn't done that. He's played defense. He's dodged. And the longer he refuses to give straight answers, the more people assume he's hiding something. Now, let's talk about what happened in those congressional hearings, because they were a disaster for Patel. He walked into the Capitol for what was supposed to be routine oversight and instead got absolutely hammered for 10 hours. Democrats came prepared with documents, with timelines, with specific questions designed to trap him in contradictions. They asked about missing names in the Epstein files. They asked about why certain people weren't being investigated. They asked about reports that he fired FBI agents for political reasons, and Patel didn't handle it well. There are clips of him yelling at senators, clips of him refusing to answer direct questions, clips of him getting into heated exchanges that went viral and made him look defensive, angry, and guilty. CNN reported ahead of those hearings that Patel would be facing questions about turmoil at his FBI. And turmoil turned out to be an understatement, because inside the Bureau, things are falling apart. There are lawsuits from former agents who say they were pushed out for political reasons. Career professionals, nonpartisan investigators who spent decades building cases, now claim they were purged because they weren't loyal enough to Trump. There are reports that Patel makes decisions based on what will play well on social media, instead of what's actually good for law enforcement. He's reportedly obsessed with Fox News coverage and Twitter reactions. He's running the FBI like a political operation instead of a federal law enforcement agency. And the result is a morale crisis that's getting worse by the day. Experienced agents are leaving, some are retiring early, some are transferring out, some are just quitting because they can't stand what the Bureau has become under Patel's leadership. The people who stay are either true believers in Trump's agenda or people who feel trapped because they need the paycheck. That's not how you run the FBI. That's how you destroy it from the inside. So here's where Kash Patel sits right now. He's got the Epstein file scandal making him look like he's covering up for powerful criminals. He's got the foreign money scandal making him look like he's compromised by China and Russia. He's got the internal FBI rebellion making him look like he's destroying the agency from within. And he's got Congress, specifically Democrats, who have decided that making his life miserable is a top priority. They're holding hearings. They're sending letters. They're demanding documents. They're forcing him to answer questions under oath. And every time he refuses to cooperate or gives a weak answer, they get more ammunition to use against him. The resignation rumors started in July, when reports first surfaced that Patel was considering stepping down after a massive internal fight with Bondi over the Epstein files. At the time, the story was that Patel and Bongino were both threatening to quit over the document release fight. Patel supposedly told people that if Bongino walked, he was walking too, and that got everyone's attention because it suggested the fight was real, that it was intense, and that Patel was willing to lose his job over it. But here's what's interesting. Patel didn't resign in July. He didn't resign in September after those brutal hearings. He's still there, which means either the rumors are exaggerated or Patel is looking for the right moment to leave without it looking like he was forced out. Because in Washington, how you leave matters almost as much as why you leave. If Patel resigns now, in the middle of all these scandals, it looks like he's fleeing. It looks like he has something to hide. But if he can hold on a little longer, if he can fight through one more hearing, one more investigation, maybe he can claim he left on his own terms. Maybe he can spin it as a principled decision instead of a surrender. The problem is the pressure isn't letting up. If anything, it's getting worse. The Epstein files aren't going away. Every week brings new demands for transparency. Every week there's another lawsuit, another FOIA request, another congressional letter demanding answers. And Patel can't keep dodging forever. At some point, he either releases the files or he admits he's covering something up. There's no middle ground. The foreign money questions aren't going away either. Schiff and other Democrats are committed to getting answers. They want to know exactly who paid Patel, how much, and what they expected in return. And if Patel can't provide satisfactory answers, they're going to keep pushing. They're going to keep holding hearings. They're going to keep making his life a nightmare. And the internal FBI chaos isn't going away. The lawsuits are moving forward. The morale problems are getting worse. Every agent who leaves or speaks out publicly just adds to the narrative that Patel is destroying the Bureau. At some point, even Trump is going to look at this and decide that keeping Patel around is more trouble than it's worth, because Trump doesn't tolerate failure. He doesn't tolerate people who become a liability. He demands loyalty, but he doesn't return it when things go sideways. And Patel's situation is going sideways fast. Which brings us to the bigger picture. This whole mess is a perfect example of what happens when you prioritize loyalty over competence. Trump picked Kash Patel because Patel defended him during the Russia investigation, because Patel pushed deep state conspiracy theories, because Patel wrote a book trashing the FBI and the intelligence community. Trump didn't pick Patel because he was qualified to run the FBI. He picked him because he was loyal. And now that loyalty has produced an FBI director who can't manage the Epstein files, who can't explain his foreign money ties, who can't stop his own agency from falling apart, and who might be forced out less than a year into the job. And here's what's really interesting. Even Republicans in Congress haven't been rushing to defend Patel. Sure, they pushed back on some of the Democratic attacks during the hearings, but there wasn't a unified wall of protection. There wasn't a coordinated effort to shut down the investigations, which suggests that even Trump's allies in Congress are nervous about Patel. Even they think this guy might be too much of a liability, because when you're the FBI director and you can't get your own party to defend you, you're in serious trouble. So what happens next? If the resignation rumors are true, Patel might be looking for an exit strategy. He might be waiting for the right moment to step down without it looking like a forced departure. Or he might be holding on, hoping the pressure eventually dies down. But the pressure isn't dying down, it's building. The Epstein files are still sealed. The foreign money questions are still unanswered. The FBI is still in chaos, and Congress is still demanding answers. At some point, something has to give. If Patel resigns, it'll be a huge blow to Trump. It'll prove that even hand-picked loyalists can't survive when they're incompetent or corrupt or both. It'll show that Trump's approach to government, putting loyalty above everything else, produces people who inevitably fail. And it'll raise serious questions about who Trump will pick next. Because if Kash Patel, the ultimate Trump loyalist, can't handle the FBI, who can? But if Patel doesn't resign, if he fights and stays, then the pressure will only get worse. Congress will keep pushing. The scandals will keep growing. The FBI will keep falling apart. And Patel will become a permanent distraction, a constant reminder of everything that's wrong with Trump's approach to governance. Either way, the outcome isn't good for Patel. And it's not good for Trump, because this story isn't just about one man's problems. It's about what happens when you put loyalty above competence, when you prioritize politics over professionalism, when you turn the FBI into a political weapon instead of an independent law enforcement agency. Kash Patel was supposed to be the solution. He was supposed to clean up the FBI, restore trust, and protect Trump from his enemies. Instead, he's become the problem. And now everyone in Washington is watching to see how this ends. Does he resign? Does he get forced out? Does he somehow survive? And what does his fate say about the bigger forces at play? About Trump's judgment? About the future of the FBI? About whether accountability still exists in Washington? The answers to those questions are coming, and they're coming fast, because the walls are closing in on Kash Patel from every direction. The Epstein files, the foreign money, the internal rebellion, the congressional hearings, it's all converging at once. And when the pressure finally breaks, when Patel either walks away or gets pushed out, it's going to send shockwaves through Washington. It's going to prove once again that loyalty, no matter how fierce, can't protect you from the truth.